Hi there. In this video, older bargain keyboards and sound modules. You know how I love a bargain, right? It's a top 11 list. The problem with a list like this is publishing such a list, just publishing it, can cause the keyboards on the list to increase in price. But here goes. At number 11, Akai AX80. It's an 8-voice polyphonic synth with a velocity-sensitive keyboard. It's got 2 oscillators per voice and a sub. It sounds dull, lifeless, and its presets are beyond boring. So why is it on the list? It's on the list because when you add effects, it comes alive. It has the same CEM chips that are in the Oberheim Expander. It's also built like a tank and has a very cool, massive fluoro display. You can buy a ROM upgrade for $30, and that gives you better MIDI implementation and gives you some other cool features. I purchased one new in 1985, sold it circa 1996, and repurchased another one circa 2012, and I'm never going to sell it again. 5 years ago, this synth would have been closer to the top of the list. You could pick one up for $450 to $500, but the word is out. Now you're looking at least $1,000, maybe even $1,500. I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually sells for more used than a Juno 106. In my opinion, it's a much better synth, and I own both an Akai AX80 and a Juno 106. Number 10, Korg DW8000. 5 years ago, these synths would have also been close to the top of the list because you could get one for around about $350. You can still find them from time to time for around $500, but usually they are closer to $800. You really want the 8000 and not the 6000, which has less waveforms. I think the fact that these are parameter-based entry turns a lot of people off. But by the mid and late 80s, manufacturers were making a lot of entry and mid-level synths with parameter entry to save on cost. Just because they don't have a knob or a slider for every parameter doesn't mean that they don't sound good. Check the 8000 out. At number 9, Roland XV5080. At one time, this was Roland's flagship, rack mount box of sounds, but the Integra 7 probably holds that crown now. Still, the XV5080 will play Roland, Akai, Wave, and other samples, and it has a SCSI port to make that possible. It has some tricks up its sleeve that the Integra 7 doesn't have, and vice versa. If you want a huge arsenal of Roland sounds from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, this is a great choice. You'll find them in the $500 to $600 range. Similar units you can also get from other manufacturers, and they include the Yamaha Motif ES rack and the Korg Triton rack, if you prefer the sounds from these instruments. Number 8, Yamaha TX81Z. It's an 8-voice, 4-operator FM rack mount synth. It also has additional onboard waveforms, and it's multi-timbral. Not a lot of buttons, so you'll be doing the tedious editing of parameters one at a time. On the other hand, there are literally thousands of patches available on the internet. If you like the sounds of the DX21 and the DX27, this is more affordable and only takes up a single rack space. These can be found for $150 to $200. As a disclaimer, I used to own one. Number 7, Ensoniq ESQ1. This is a digital wavetable synth with 8 voices. It has a very cool fluoro display. It has a fair number of buttons, and even though editing is one parameter at a time, the big display and the soft button layout makes it a lot easier to edit than other synths that require single parameter editing. Nice examples sell in the $500 to $600 range. Known to be relatively reliable, the only big issue is the fluoro display. If it dies, it may be hard to replace. It has 3 oscillators per voice and sounds very nice. Coming in at number 6, Roland D50. Who doesn't know the D50? The digital trinity of 80s synthesizers is probably the D50, the DX7, and the M1, or possibly the WaveStation. It has 16 voices and a velocity-sensitive keyboard, with 8-bit attack transient samples tacked onto a synth engine. It sounds amazing, even by today's standards. It has several marquee sounds that all synth aficionados recognize. You can pick up one of these beauties in the $600 range, with pristine versions costing several $100s more. At number 5, Yamaha DX7, another synth that every synth aficionado knows. 16 6-operator voices of FM goodness. The original DX7 from 1983 has flawed velocity implementation. It was also 12-bit. The newer versions that came out in 1987 are 16-bit and offer more patches, better MIDI implementation, and more. There are 3 models of the new version: the DX7S, the DX7 2D, and the DX7 2FD. The D has dual layer split, and the FD adds a floppy drive. The DX7 2FD is the best factory DX7 ever made and is the one to get. The E modification fixed issues on the original DX7 and added features. On the newer models, it made the DX7 multi-timbral, added more patches, a sequencer, and more. E mods are not made anymore, but others have duplicated the mod, and it was still available as of this video. Hardware mods are available to replace the 2FD floppy drive with a USB or SD card reader, and there are literally tens of thousands of patches on the web. Prices are in the $500 to $700 range, thanks to the fact that a ton of them were made, but that won't hold the price down forever. At number 4, Casio CZ5000. I know what you're thinking. No way I'm putting a Casio on the same rack as my DX7, M1, WaveStation, and D50. But it's a serious synthesizer. It has 2 oscillators per voice, 8 stage envelopes, a significant number of buttons and slider, and it's almost 1 function per button, but not exactly. It uses phase distortion technology, not VCOs, DCOs, or FM. Think of it this way. If you wanted to create a new synth back in 1985 to compete with the DX7, but Yamaha had already licensed the patent for FM, which they had, what would you do? That's right, use phase distortion. How does it sound? To me, it's not quite FM, definitely not analog. Listen to some demos, and if you like it, it may be for you. It also has a sequencer, 61-note keyboard, decent MIDI, and it's affordable at around $400. I owned a CZ3000 for a short time. There is also a 1000 and the small 101, but the CZ5000 is the one to own if you're interested in this type of sound. At number 3, Korg WaveStation, either the original, the EX, the AD, or the SR. Nothing generates evolving, warm, analog and digital sounding pads like a Korg WaveStation. If you need or want piano and drum sounds too, don't get the original WaveStation, as it doesn't have those sounds. The best value here is the SR, which is a single rack module with extra ROM banks. Still has the card slot, and you can find them for around $200. Sometimes less. The downside is the small display for editing. The AD has an audio input jack, which allows you to process sounds through the internal effects and to use it as a vocoder. The ADs have really gone up in value in recent years, but they can still be found for under $500 from time to time. It's a 2-rack space unit, which allows it to keep the keyboard's big screen and all the front panel controls. It has stereo XLR outs, but it also has 4 1/4-inch outs. The keyboard versions are the original and EX models, and the EX has the addition of piano and drum sounds. It has a 61 velocity and aftertouch keyboard. It's one of the most warm-sounding digital synths I've ever heard. As a disclaimer, I own an original keyboard version, an AD version, an SR version. I also have all the factory presets programmed into my Kronos. You could say, I love the Wavestation, and you would be right. And number 2, samplers. Roland S550, S760, Akai S5000, 6000, and many more. I've included these together to save space. Some people still love hardware samplers, despite the prevalence of Kontakt and the fact that you can convert the libraries for all these samplers to Kontakt. I sold my 2 hardware samplers about 7 years ago and converted all the sounds. Prices are definitely going up. The Akai S5000 and 6000 tend to be the best values, with lots of sounds available and expansion options. One of the Akais will run you in the $400 to $500 range. The Rolands have the advantage of mouse and video monitor control, but they're a lot more expensive. At number 1, Korg Poly 800 Mark I and Mark II. This is an 8-voice analog polyphonic synth with a 49 regular size key, non-velocity sensitive keyboard. It's an 80s DCO synth through analog filters. It's only 1 oscillator per voice, but you can layer the voices if you don't mind cutting the polyphony in half. It doesn't have many knobs or buttons, so editing is tedious parameter entry. It has a polyphonic step sequencer and tape patch saving and loading, though there is system exclusive on the Mark II. The Mark II has a digital delay effect that can create chorusing and delay effects. It has an all-plastic construction. It will run on batteries, and you can attach a guitar strap on it. This makes it relatively portable and fun to use in a band. Mark I's and II's go in the $300 to $400 range. They don't sound fat or smooth, but with external effects, they are very usable. They tend to be very reliable. If you can find one in good condition, they are definitely worth your consideration. I own a Mark II. At $350, it's an incredible value on an 80s DCO analog synth. I'm predicting they will be at least twice this price in 5 years. Before I close, I have to discuss reliability of older gear. I said in another episode that I wouldn't want to own a Yamaha CS80. In about 3 years, it's going to be 50 years old. If you think in general, how many consumer electronics devices do you have in your home that are pushing 50 years old? Probably not many or none. And a keyboard is a lot more complex than 70s transistor radios or toasters. Very old tech, pre-1980s, is often based on basic silicon components like transistors, diodes, and resistors. If there are any integrated circuits, they are probably generic devices that would not be too hard to find. The more modern the gear, the more likely you are to find manufacturer-branded proprietary integrated circuits. This started around the mid-80s, but you may find instances of it prior to that. What this means is that if your component fails, your only option for repair might be to find the component in a similar unit that is being parted out. That could mean waiting, perhaps indefinitely. Regarding the Yamaha CS80, I did say in another episode that I'd love for my neighbor to own one so I could doodle on it and he could deal with all the maintenance issues that go along with owning gear that is a half-century old. There are still some bargains to be had on older classic keyboard synths. Obviously not the pure analog monsters. I could create at least 2 more lists of older bargain keyboards and other music gear. I have another video episode that talks about how to get great deals, and you might find it interesting. Hopefully I haven't wasted your time. Take care, and I'll be back in another episode soon.